I think that's called life. And I think that's definitely called entrepreneurship. That's called investing. That's called all these things. And anybody who, when you ask them like, oh, how's it going? If they're always like, great, you're probably not that close to them.
One of the things that two New Year's resolutions I had, now we're, about halfway into the year, right? One was to use more of the things I already have, be it a membership at a club or, a musical instrument I'm not playing or something, an app on my phone that I paid for, to do that. And the second was to get more things in that are not work related. Even though I really like work and enjoy it, I think that having non-work things that you're focusing on too can be really important. So not the topic of this thing, but definitely something that you asked me, and I didn't give you the everything's going fine, Ryan, answer. I gave you the
well, we never do, right? I mean, I feel like every time we ask that, and we try to answer it honestly, because there's times when things are absolutely amazing, and there's times when things could frankly be a hell of a lot better. And I think that's called life, and I think that's definitely called entrepreneurship. That's called investing. That's called all these things. And anybody who, when you ask them like, oh, how's it going? If they're always like, great, you're probably not that close to them.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you're ever learning from somebody and everything is always amazing in their life, they're either lying or they're completely out of the game.
I agree.
I mean, they're out of the game.
Out of the game, now you've got different issues, but
exactly. Yeah. Like they might be bored and they might have some wisdom to apply, but how current it is, I would definitely question.
Okay, so that said, I want to talk today. We just did an episode on summer slowdown, or just how do you generally deal with cyclicality in your business, and what are some of the specific strategies and tactics for dealing with that. The kind of similarly related topic, I think, is how much cash should you hold in reserve, or how much should you have as reserve, even if it's not cash, but like truly as a reserve, to weather the bad times and the unanticipated. And there's a lot of different thinking on how to come up with that. And I specifically was asked by one of our portfolio companies to help establish that, because they're doing really, really well. And they're going to have, an 8-figure profit up from a 6-figure profit a year ago. So it's a big jump. And so, everybody, all the owners and stakeholders are like, all right, how about you throw some of that out to for the boys, a little bit of
jingle in the jangle. Yeah.
And so the CEO asked me, he said, hey, I'm all for that. Typically we've done this, but things are just in a whole different strata right now. So how do we go about doing that? And so I wanted to chat a little bit about it and kind of brainstorm with you on it. What do you think are some of the best things to think about? So let's just kind of highlight some of the strategies that people do use, and then let's talk about what we like about them and what we don't. The first one is to keep 3 to 6 months of operating expenses. I think that's typically a personal financial advisor recommendation as well. You should have 6 months of expenses saved as cash, just in case something happens. And I think that's a good one. But then you also get to, in a relative dollars or euros or pounds kind of mentality, if it's a lot and you aren't Apple or Warren Buffett, can you afford to have that? Like if you're running at $3 million a month of expenses, do you need to have $20 million in cash sitting around? I don't know. Let's think about that. What are your thoughts on that as a strategy?
I think that at a bare minimum, every business should maintain at least 1 month of operating in an operating account. Beyond that,
just straight cash, you should have it there. Yeah.
And that is in your standard operating account where money kind of goes in and out of, just so that you don't get in a situation where you bounce a check or something like that, right? I mean, we've
Well,
had it.
even I'll give you a great thing that used to hit us when we first, started doing stuff together, and we didn't have a professional accounting uh, team. Is that there are some months when there are three payrolls,
Right.
and those months absolutely suck because it's like, well, wait a minute, that's an extra 200,000 that I got to
Right.
pay out this month that I'm not thinking about. So just even for something as simple as that, or the other thing that hits us very frequently is there's a holiday, and so we're prepaying the payroll 4 or 5 days ahead of when we would have normally, and we have to pull the payroll out of cash flow a few days before that to get it in the right account to be able to make the payroll. And so we may lose a week to 8 days of float, if you will. So I think just having a month is absolutely critical because there's stuff like that happens all the
Yeah.
time. I thought it would be interesting to talk about. I noticed an article about Andy Jassy, who came in and replaced Jeff Bezos at Amazon, and I didn't really realize what was going on at Amazon at the time that he came in. And I thought that there were, as I kind of dug into all the things that he had done, I thought that it would be actually helpful for everybody, particularly in this environment that we're in right now, where a lot of people are telling us that they're experiencing challenges in their business in terms of revenue and profits and valuation and things like that, which are the three pillars of our scalable program. And so I thought it was really interesting. And one of the investors even said, and they quoted them as, "I'd rather have Jassy than Bezos." And it was one of the top Amazon investors. So I thought that was really interesting. And I'm just looking to see, let's see, it said the shareholders were not happy. This was when he came in, and he came in, I think, around mid or end of 21. And so this was at an investor meeting in 22. It said the shareholders were not happy. Amazon had just become the first company to shed $1 trillion in market value, which is amazing that you can do that and stay in business, and was on its way to a $2.7 billion annual loss. And so it talks about how he basically came in, he helped push the company's market cap above 2 trillion for the first time. And he's been there for 3 years. So it's kind of a short, like, I like it because it's a short amount of time that he's really been there, and he's had some pretty significant, wins. So that's kind of where I wanted to start and talk about some of the things that he did and share that with you guys, and maybe us riff on it a little bit. So I basically distilled it down into a list of the major things that he did, which I'm scrambling to pull up on my iPad. And the first one was, and it's simple, but it makes sense. It's the power of a fresh perspective. And so he introduced a renewed focus on profitability. You get these CEOs like Mark Zuckerberg saying, what was it? This is the year of efficiency and things like that. So he actually came in with kind of a theme. And so I think people rally around themes. So a return to profitability and operational efficiency is kind of interesting. And it was counter to what had been going on before, which was Bezos' growth at all costs, right? Which you can't fault him for. Look what he built. But I thought that was interesting. And so the stock price more than doubled. It's gotten up above 2 trillion. And the action step, like thinking about what could people do here? I was thinking basically coming up with a theme for how are we going to go forward? What's the thing that we're going to rally around and get obviously buy-in, but buy-in from the employees, the investors, whoever the stakeholders in the business are, and then pick a specific target. Like, we're going to increase employee engagement by this much, or leads by this, or revenue, or profits, or whatever, valuation if you're if you're dealing with that kind of thing. But I think having a KPI that you're going to hit around a new theme is kind of an interesting thing, just because it's hard when you're being beaten down a little bit to just say, well, we're going to get better with no, like, what are we going to do different? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, totally. I love that. It's and something we've done. Did a talk on this at a founders board meeting. I don't know, year and a half, 2 years ago now. But it's this idea of a keystone metric, and it's one of the things that we're very clear on. Every single quarter, when we do our quarterly sprint planning, we're going to get clear on what are our North Star metrics. Like, so these are the metrics that we're going to really focus on for this quarter, and those metrics need to align to a particular theme or a rallying cry. And I always like it. Can the theme or rallying cry fit on a t-shirt? And there have been some quarters where it's been particularly like we need to get people particularly inspired. So we actually did print out, t-shirts that were, for that thing. And it, might have been like, ring the bell or stack the cash. And it's almost always something around, do we need to generate more top line sales, or more bottom line profitability? Sometimes there's things around, systemized to scale was one, but I do think that it's good to have a more subjective theme or rallying cry that people literally can remember. And if it's alliterative and if it fits on a t-shirt, that's great. But if it doesn't connect back to a metric that people can measure, then it's probably not going to last. Yeah. It's just going to be like another, entrepreneurial arts and craft eagle in flight poster.
People want to know how they're winning. How do we know we're winning?
How do we know exactly?
Yeah.
And so we've got the North Star metrics that are kind of those leading metrics that we want to make sure that we impact. But then we'll also look at like, if we can, and it's not every quarter that we can come up with it, but like, what's a clear keystone metric? This one metric, if we get this one right, we believe it's going to prop up everything else. And sometimes that's actually a lagging metric. So it might be something like we want to change from quarter to quarter or year to year. Amazon's on a much longer cycle than most of the companies we run are.